Okay, let's unpack this. If you've been paying, any attention to the tech world lately, you've probably felt the shift. We spent a good couple of years really diving deep into the magic, the mechanics of large language models themselves, how they work, what they can do.
Right, the core tech.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now, the buzz is squarely focused on AI agents.
Oh.
It feels like everywhere you look.
Oh, absolutely.
We're hearing that 2025, this is the year they start fundamentally changing things, how we work, how we live. Everything.
It's sort of the natural evolution, isn't it? Once you have a model that can understand and generate complex language, the next logical step is giving it the ability to do things based on that understanding, to, take action in the real world or the digital one.
Action.
The focus has definitely shifted towards these autonomous or maybe semi-autonomous entities.
Exactly. You see headlines everywhere, agents, agentic AI, predicting this massive adoption. But you and I know, and probably many listening know, that often the market's definition of a hot new term, well, it doesn't always line up perfectly with the academic or theoretical one.
That's putting it mildly sometimes, yeah.
So what are these AI agents really? Is this genuinely something brand new, a whole new paradigm? Or are we maybe just rebranding something older with, catchier name?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And where does Google's big push here fit in? There are personalized versions of Gemini, these gems. Where do they sit in this evolving picture? Are gems actually agents? Are they showing us the future? Or are they, mainly just souped up customizable chatbots?
Well, those are precisely the core questions our sources are wrestling with. They give us perspectives ranging from, expert definitions and big enterprise concerns, right down to the ground level experience. What are users actually finding when they try to build and use these things?
And that really sets up our mission for this deep dive then. We're going to use all this material you've pulled together, the expert analysis from IBM, those candid user chats on Reddit. Yeah, sort of fascinating.
Practical building guides from adventures in CRE and Zapier, some background from Wikipedia, and that industry-specific look from Inslee. We're going to try and cut through the hype.
Okay.
We want to understand the definitions, the current reality versus maybe the ambitious claims. Walk through how you can actually build and customize something like a Gemini gem.
Right, the how-to.
Explore specific real-world examples, especially, and this is key, those leveraging the tools you might already use within the Google ecosystem.
That integration piece is crucial.
Definitely. And we also need to weigh the skepticism, the critical questions around governance, strategy, all that stuff that comes with these powerful capabilities.
And it's important as we jump in to remember we're taking a bit of an advanced perspective here.
Right.
We're assuming you, our listener, you're already up to speed on the basics of what an LLM is. We're not going back to square one defining large language model. No, we're building on that, looking specifically at how these models are being leveraged, extended, maybe positioned as agents, examining the practical applications and, the challenges too.
Exactly. So where should we start cutting through that hype?
Perfect. Let's start right there. What exactly is an AI agent, according to the experts? And how does that compare to what we're seeing marketed right now? What's the gap?
Okay, so if we look at that IBM source, you've got experts like Mariam Ashuri really grappling with this. She offers what you might call the true definition of an AI agent.
Okay.
The pure definition.
She describes it as an intelligent entity with reasoning and planning capabilities that can autonomously take action.
Autonomously take action. That's the key phrase, isn't it? That feels different.
It really does. It's not just about responding to a prompt you type in.
No.
It's about initiating action based on its own understanding and its own goals, potentially.
Right. Like you give it a big picture objective. Exactly. Think about it. You give it a high-level goal, maybe, research competitors in the renewable energy sector, and draft a summary report.
Okay.
A true agent, in this theoretical sense, would break that down itself. It would figure out, okay, what data sources do I need? Web search, internal databases. It would formulate the search queries, access the info, process it, synthesize the findings, structure the report, maybe even start drafting it, all with minimal or maybe even no step-by-step human guidance after that initial command.
So it figures out the how on its own.
Precisely. It's about self-directed decision-making, planning, and execution. Ashuri really stresses that self-directed piece as the defining thing for a true agent.
Okay, that makes sense. That's the ideal, the theoretical gold standard, the AI equivalent of hiring a super capable assistant. You just point in the right direction.
Right.
Now, how does that compare to what's actually being called an agent out there in the market today?
Well, this is where the critique from those same experts kicks in. Ashuri and others, they point out that a lot of what's currently marketed as an agent, it's essentially an LLM that's been enhanced.
Enhanced how?
With fairly rudimentary planning abilities and, importantly, tool calling capabilities.
Goal calling, that's sometimes called
Yeah.
function calling too, right?
Yes, same idea. The LLM can understand your request and figure out, okay, to do this, I need to use an external tool.
Like a calculator or a browser.
Exactly. A web browser to fetch info, a calculator for math, maybe a code interpreter to analyze some data. The LLM basically identifies which tool it needs and then passes the necessary information over to that tool.
Okay, so the AI understands the task,
Yeah.
knows it needs a tool, tells the system to use the tool. But the skepticism, like from Marina Danilevsky at IBM, is that, well, this isn't fundamentally new.
That's her point precisely. She
Yeah.
asks pretty directly, how is this really all that different from orchestration?
Orchestration, like in regular programming.
Exactly. Danilevsky argues that calling this agentic feels a bit like renaming something programmers have done for decades. You know, orchestrating a sequence of programmed steps or function calls.
Right, in traditional coding, a human programmer writes the code that says, first, do this function, then call this function, then this one. They define the exact sequence.
Yes. The human defines the logic and the flow explicitly.
So the difference with the AI agent version is the LLM is deciding which tools to call, maybe in what order, based on understanding the user's request in natural language.
That's the nuance, yes. The LLM adds this layer of intelligence to the selection and maybe the sequencing of those tool calls. It might even chain a few tool uses together.
Okay.
But Danilevsky's skepticism, it seems to stem from whether this level of planning truly counts as autonomous reasoning through novel situations. Or is it just a more flexible way to trigger predefined functions based on language input? She questions if it's enough to justify the agent label and all the hype around it, especially when, as she points out, many businesses are still trying to figure out the basic return on investment for LLMs themselves, let alone these more complex agent setups.
So it feels like maybe agent is just the cool word right now, as she put it, slapping it onto existing concepts.
That seems to be her perspective, yeah. It's less about the tool calling itself and more about the depth of the intelligence and autonomy behind the decision to use the tool and sequence the actions.
Right. And maybe currently that autonomous reasoning isn't quite as advanced as the true definition implies.
It might be more like the LLM is a smart conductor for an orchestra of predefined tools rather than a composer writing a whole new symphony on the fly.
That's a great analogy. And Vyoma Gadjar, also from IBM, seems to echo this.
She does. She suggests that while we're seeing, early glimpses of agentic capabilities like analyzing data, automating some workflows, achieving truly autonomous decision-making, especially in complex or novel situations, that's going to require big leaps in contextual reasoning and also in testing for all those tricky edge cases.
So the current state might be more about enabling the LLM to use tools effectively, rather than true self-directed problem-solving across brand new domains.
That seems to be the consensus among these experts. We're not quite there yet with the full vision.
Okay, so the definition's a bit murky. The current market reality is maybe more about enhanced LLMs with tools. Where do Google's Gemini gems slot into this whole conversation?
Right, gems. They're Google's big play in this emerging space. Sources like those Reddit threads and the Zapier article, they describe gems as basically customizable versions of the underlying Gemini LLM.
Customizable how? Like you build your own version?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to let users create personalized AI assistants that are tailored for specific tasks or specific preferences.
So instead of just using the standard Gemini chat interface, you can figure your own specialized Gemini.
Exactly. And they're positioned directly against competitors you might know, like OpenAI's custom GPTs. It's the same kind of concept.
And Google's goal here, according to Zapier, is
Right.
streamlining tasks.
Yeah, streamline repetitive tasks, create a more consistent, tailored AI experience. You define its purpose and constraints once, set it up how you want it.
And then ideally, it just behaves that way every time you interact with it.
The goal, but, and this is a really key piece of feedback coming out of those Reddit discussions, user sentiment is definitely mixed on whether gems fundamentally add new capabilities compared to just, writing a really good, really precise, elaborate prompt for the standard Gemini model.
Ah, okay, so some users feel it's more about persistence than power.
That's a critical point for anyone thinking of using them. Many feel that, in practice, gems are primarily a way to give the AI a persistent personality or to make sure it sticks to a specific conversational style.
So it acts more like a saved, pre-prompted version of Gemini, maybe.
Right.
Rather than a truly distinct, more capable tool.
That seems to be a common feeling. The core capabilities are still coming from the underlying Gemini model itself. The GEM framework is more like a customization layer you put on top of that.
Interesting. So Google's positioning them as personalized AI assistants, but some users are experiencing them more like personalized chatbots with saved instructions, maybe a bit of added knowledge from uploaded files if that works.
Right. It seems we're still very much in that phase, Gajar, called agentic exploration. Both the companies building these things and the users trying them out are still figuring out what these customizable AI interfaces can really do.
And what value they genuinely provide beyond just crafting a really good prompt yourself.
Exactly. Ashori does note that surveys show almost all developers are exploring or building agents, so it's definitely a massive area of experimentation right now.
Yeah.
But the reality of widespread, reliable agents handling really complex autonomous tasks, that's still an open question, debated heavily by experts like Danilevsky on the ROI side and Gajar on the technical leaps needed.
And GEMs are just one path Google is taking in this exploration, focusing on that user-level customization and personalization.
That seems right.
Okay, so we have this theoretical debate about agents, the current reality of LMs using tools, and Google's approach with GEMs as customizable interfaces. If someone listening wanted to actually try building one of these personalized assistants, maybe Gemini Gem, what are the practical steps? What ingredients do you need?
Well, the Adventures in CRE source gives a really useful breakdown. They outline the core components you typically define when building these custom AIs, whether it's GEMs, custom GPTs, or similar platforms like Claude projects.
Okay, what are the components?
They break it down into 4 main things you set up. First, custom instructions. Second, supporting documents or data for knowledge. Third, enabled capabilities or tools. And fourth, prompt examples or starters.
I like their analogy. Think of it like training a junior analyst for a very specific, specialized job.
Exactly. You're giving them everything they need to do that one task really well.
So let's start with the first one. Custom instructions. That sounds critical.
It is, arguably the most crucial part. This is where you define the brain of your gem. It's where you tell the AI who to be, what its goal is, and how it should go about achieving it.
And that source recommends a structured way to do this.
Roads.
Yes, the ROADS framework. Role, objective, details, examples, and sense check. It's a structured way to think through crafting those instructions.
Okay, let's walk through roads using their commercial real estate example. First, role.
You define the persona. Who is this AI supposed to be? For the real estate example, you might say, act as a seasoned commercial real estate analyst specializing in industrial properties.
That sets the tone, the expected expertise.
Got it. Then objective.
That's the specific goal. What is this gem meant to help the user achieve? For instance, analyze recent industrial cap rate trends in major metropolitan areas. Clear and focused.
Makes sense. Details. This sounds important.
Very. This is where you give it the constraints, the context, specific requirements, what geographic areas, what time frames, specific metrics, data sources to prefer or avoid.
Like, focus only on Class A industrial buildings over 100,000 square feet built after 2010.
Exactly that kind of specificity.
Yep.
The more detailed you are here, the less likely the AI is to kind of wander off track or misunderstand.
Okay, examples.
Providing sample inputs and, crucially, what a good output looks like is super helpful for the AI. You could show it a typical query like, analyze cap rates for Q1 2024 in Atlanta.
And then show what the ideal response should contain. Like a summary, key data points, maybe identify a trend.
Precisely. It gives the AI concrete illustrations of what success looks like for its specific task.
And the last one, sense check. What's that?
This is basically building in a little verification step. You might instruct the gem before you start the analysis, summarize the task and the constraints as you understand them.
Ah, so it confirms it got the instructions right.
Exactly. Or ask clarifying questions if any part of the request is unclear. It's a way to make sure the AI is on the right page before it starts generating the main output.
Using a structured approach like ROADS.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. You're systematically building out the AI's core programming for its specific job.
Right.
And looking at those Reddit discussions about the really creative gems like that Anthony Bourdain reviewer or the all-seer psychic persona,
Yeah.
their shared instructions are often incredibly long, multi-part text blocks. They're essentially doing roads, just maybe in a less formal way.
Yeah.
They're painstakingly defining the persona, the goals, the constraints, even giving implied examples through describing the desired behavior in minute detail.
Absolutely. Those creative examples really show how far users are pushing that instructions component to shape the AI's identity and behavior. The instructions for that all-seer gem, the clairvoyant one, they apparently run for pages, with super specific directives on channeling messages, remote viewing protocols, interpreting signs from different entities. It's wild.
Yep.
The level of detail in defining its knowledge and interaction style is what creates such a unique persona, even if it's totally fantastical.
So instructions are the brain. What about the knowledge piece? The fuel?
Right, the knowledge. This refers to the ability, as mentioned in the Adventures in CRE source, to upload specific documents or data files that your gem should be knowledgeable about.
Like company documents, FAQs, research papers.
Exactly. Internal reports, maybe examples of past work you've done. The idea is to give the AI a private, domain-specific knowledge base that goes beyond its general training data.
Okay.
These uploaded files, they essentially act as a secondary set of prompts or references. They guide the AI to use that specific information when it's answering questions or doing its task.
That ability to ground the AI in your own data, that feels incredibly powerful, especially for business use cases where the value is often tied up in proprietary information.
It should be powerful, but, and this is where those Reddit sources flag a really significant practical limitation that users have hit with Gemini gems specifically. It seems there's inconsistency and unreliability in getting a gem to actually learn from or reliably use those external documents you upload, especially when trying to use features like live access for web content.
So the document upload feature might not work as well as hoped.
That's a major point of user frustration, especially when they compare it to other tools like custom GPTs, where the document upload and retrieval capabilities are often seen as more robust, more reliable.
So if you can't confidently feed your gem, say a bunch of PDF research papers, or train it reliably on the content of a specific website using a link, that really limits its usefulness for certain tasks, doesn't it?
It severely limits it, especially for tasks needing deep knowledge of specific, maybe non-public information or constantly updated external info. It means the knowledge component is often limited to what you can cram into the instructions themselves or what it can get from a general web search, which might not be good enough for niche or proprietary topics.
That definitely sounds like a significant hurdle for creating those truly specialized AI experts on demand. Okay, let's move to the third component, capabilities or tools, the muscles the gem can flex.
Right. This is about enabling specific functions the gem can access to do its job, as the Adventures in CRE source notes. Common examples are things like letting it browse the web for current info.
Yeah.
Giving it a code interpreter to analyze data or work with spreadsheets, or maybe even an image generation tool for creative stuff.
And this links back to the underlying Gemini model itself, right? That Wikipedia source mentioned Gemini was designed from the ground up to be multimodal.
Exactly. Designed to handle text, images, audio, video code, all sorts of things. Now, not all of those modalities might be directly available as simple checkboxes, like turn on audio processing for your gem today.
Right.
But the underlying model's ability to handle different data types is fundamental. It's the foundation for potential future capabilities, and it probably powers the strength of the tools that are available now.
And user feedback on Reddit in those comparison threads suggests Gemini, especially the more advanced models like Advanced Ultra and 2.5 Pro Expanse, some users find it significantly better at coding than competitors.
That's what some users are reporting, yes. Which suggests that the code interpreter capability, if you enable it in your gem and it works reliably, could be a real strength, especially for users needing data analysis, calculations, or anything code-related.
And maybe its strengths in research or translation could make the web browsing tool more effective too.
Potentially, yes. Those underlying model strengths should ideally enhance the tools that leverage them.
Got it. So instructions, knowledge, with that big caveat about external docs, and capabilities tools. And Adventures in CRE also mentioned prompt examples briefly.
Yeah, just providing a few starter queries. It's a simple thing, but it helps guide users on how to interact with the gem and shows them what it's designed for right off the bat.
a good onboarding mechanism.
Exactly.
And of course, building one of these isn't just a one-time setup. That source stress testing and iteration,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely critical. You can't just build it and assume it's perfect. You have to actually use it. Try different inputs, see how it responds.
Let's check if it's using the knowledge you gave it, if that feature works.
Right. Verify the tone. Does it stick to the persona? Does it stay within the scope you defined? And then, crucially, you have to go back and tweak the instructions, maybe adjust the knowledge files based on what you learn.
It's an ongoing process, like training that junior analyst. You give feedback, refine the instructions.
Exactly. You iterate to get it right and keep it performing well as your needs change or as you understand its quirks better.
Okay, so we've covered what these customizable AI assistants are, the ingredients for building them. Now let's get into the action. How are people actually using these tools, specifically Gemini gems? And where does that big advantage, the Google ecosystem integration, really come into play? This is where the rubber meets the road, right?
Absolutely. And this is where the value proposition for Gemini, especially Gemini for Google Workspace, starts to look really compelling, just as the Inslee source highlights.
Because for anyone deeply embedded in the Google suite, Gmail, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Calendar.
The major benefit is that deep native integration. It's built right in.
That Inslee source, it was looking at the insurance industry, comparing Gemini for Workspace with other enterprise AI tools. And its conclusion was pretty clear. Gemini's power there is how seamless it is with the tools companies already use constantly.
Precisely. It's not some separate app you have to open and copy-paste into. The AI is brought directly into your workflow within Gmail, within Docs, within Slides.
That drastically reduces friction, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes it easier for employees to actually use the AI without learning a whole new system or constantly switching windows.
Huge difference in usability.
Let's make this really concrete for people listening, using those insurance examples from the source. Say you're a customer service rep.
Okay, yeah. Think about managing a flood of customer emails, high volume, with a gem integrated right into Gmail, maybe trained on your company's specific insurance policies, communication style guides. It could dramatically speed things up. It could analyze incoming emails, figure out the core issue, maybe draft an initial response based on approved templates or info pulled from internal docs.
Wow.
It could even summarize super long email threads instantly so the rep can get up to speed on a complex case without reading pages and pages of back and forth.
And because it's integrated, the AI is working on your email, in your email client. No copy pasting needed.
Exactly. The context is just there. Or think about someone dealing with policy management. Instead of manually digging through potentially hundreds of Google Docs with different policy versions.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
A gem linked to Google Docs could act like an instant expert. An employee could just ask a specific question like, what's the coverage limit for storm damage under the Commercial Plus policy in Texas?
And the gem could scan the relevant docs and pull up the answer.
Pull up the precise information, ideally. It transforms that tedious search process into just a quick natural language query.
So the AI is essentially indexing and understanding your private company library within Google Docs, making it instantly searchable.
Yes, assuming, and this is an important assumption we'll come back to, assuming that data is organized and accessible within that Google ecosystem.
Right, that agent-ready idea.
Exactly. But the capability to do this right within the familiar Docs interface, that's a significant potential advantage.
What about more complex stuff, like underwriting or claims processing? The Inslee source did mention that maybe for really heavy calculations, other tools like ChatGPT's data analysis might still be better.
That's right. For intense statistical modeling or complex financial calculations, specialized tools might still have the edge. But GEMs, especially if they leverage Google Cloud capabilities or integrate tightly with Sheets and Docs, could still play a really vital role.
How so?
Well, for instance, a gem could help claims adjusters by analyzing incident reports, spotting patterns in claims data stored in Sheets, or summarizing detailed expert reports submitted as docs. And with potential integrations, you could even imagine it using Google Maps, right? To verify addresses involved in a claim, assess proximity to known risk factors like flood zones, maybe visualize locations relevant to a policy, all directly within the claims workflow.
So it's not necessarily doing the final complex calculation, but it's gathering, summarizing, visualizing information from across the Google suite to help the human make a better decision.
Precisely. The gem becomes this intelligent layer on top of the Google tools you're already using for your data, your documents, your maps, your communication.
And that's the core power of Gemini for Workspace and gems built there. The automation and information retrieval happens inside the user's existing Google environment.
That's the key takeaway. It boosts productivity by cutting down context switching and bringing AI help right to where the work is already happening. For organizations heavily invested in Google Workspace, this deep integration is a really compelling reason to look closely at Gemini gems for their specific business tasks, maybe more so than platform-agnostic tools.
That deep integration makes a ton of sense for those structured work tasks. But then you look at the Reddit sources, and they show this completely different side of gems. The really personalized, creative, sometimes wonderfully weird use cases.
Oh, absolutely. The customization features aren't just for corporate productivity. Users are really running with them to create unique AI companions and creative tools.
Yeah.
Those Reddit comparison threads, they often highlight Gemini's perceived strengths in creative writing compared to something like GPT. Users mention its ability to develop more fleshed-out storylines and world building,
Okay.
a style that feels much more loose, maybe a better grasp of narrative nuance, things like show, don't tell. This creative fluency makes it pretty well suited for these persona-driven tasks.
And this leads directly to those amazing examples people shared. That Anthony Bourdain restaurant reviewer gem. That's just brilliant.
Isn't it? That gem is a fantastic case study in just how powerful detailed instructions can be in creating a really distinct persona. The user meticulously crafted instructions for it to act as a restaurant reviewer, specifically in the voice, the style, the wit, the storytelling mannerisms of Anthony Bourdain.
It's not just mimicking his voice, though, right?
No, it's instructed to research the restaurant online, but also to draw upon knowledge of Bourdain himself, his known perspectives, his likes, his dislikes, his signature phrases, to actually write the review.
Considering criteria he would have valued, like authenticity, the story behind the food,
Yeah,
not just doing bullet points.
exactly. And then the creator added that fascinating meta layer.
Yeah.
After drafting the review, the gem is instructed to critique its own work, but from the perspective of a professional food magazine editor. Suggest improvements, and then rewrite the review incorporating those suggestions, all while still maintaining that Bourdain persona.
That is incredibly complex. A multi-step process, all within the persona, driven purely by careful instruction crafting.
And apparently, users who copied those instructions were really impressed by how well the gem captured the intended style. It really underscores how much the quality and the sheer detail of the instructions drive the gem's output and its personality, especially maybe when the external knowledge loading is less reliable.
Beyond that, there were even more out there examples. Briefly, what were Allseer and Atomy?
Right. Those are examples of users pushing customization into truly niche, almost fantastical realms. Allseer is designed to be a clairvoyant medium.
Seriously?
Yeah, the instructions detail its supposed ability to channel messages from various entities, perform remote viewing, interpret signs. It's defined with incredibly specific and, let's be honest, imaginative capabilities and knowledge.
Wow. And Atomy.
Similarly, Atomy is crafted as an anatomy expert claiming vast knowledge of organic life. It's supposed to be able to perform scans, make deductions from user input, and possess secret or lost knowledge about human consciousness and healing. Again, all based on complex, unique concepts defined purely in its instructions.
So we're seeing the full spectrum here. From practical business assistants, deeply embedded in Google Workspace,
Right.
all the way to these highly imaginative role-playing companions. It shows the range of what users are creating by leveraging that ability to define instructions, inject specific knowledge, however fantastical, and enable tools.
Exactly. Even if many of these feel more like sophisticated persona-driven chatbots than truly autonomous agents right now,
Yeah.
the level of customization is clearly enabling users to tailor the AI experience in significant and varied ways. The framework allows it, limited mainly by the user's imagination and writing instructions and the underlying capabilities of the Gemini model and its tools.
Okay, this is fascinating. You've explored the definitions, how you build these things, seen them in action from enterprise to creativity. Let's zoom out now. Let's look at the broader landscape. What are the ongoing capabilities, the limitations that still linger, and the really big picture considerations as these tools keep evolving?
Right, looking forward. The underlying Gemini models themselves, they are getting better. We touched on their strengths in multimodality, handling text, images, code, etc. That's foundational. And user reports, plus benchmarks like El Marino, where Gemini 2.5 Pro did well, they suggest progress in core capabilities. Things like reasoning, deep research.
And they're specifically working on reasoning, right? with
Yeah.
features like that deep think mode on Gemini 2.5 Pro X, trying to boost the logical processing for tough tasks.
Yes, that indicates Google is actively trying to strengthen that core intelligence layer, the layer that really underpins any true agentic capabilities. So multimodality, research, translation, maybe stronger coding, those seem to be areas where Gemini shows promise.
Which could mean more powerful gems down the line, especially if they can leverage the right tools effectively.
That's the hope. But even with these advances, we know there are still significant challenges. We talked about the inconsistency in logical reasoning that some users report compared to competitors for certain tasks.
Right, that inconsistency is still a hurdle, especially if you need high reliability.
Definitely. And we keep coming back to that practical frustration for people building gems specifically, the apparently unreliable ability to train the AI on external documents.
Yeah.
That really limits how effectively you can inject specific niche knowledge into your custom assistant, maybe compared to other setups using retrieval augmented generation more robustly.
And from a user standpoint, there's also that challenge noted on Reddit about just keeping track of Google's AI landscape, the different model names, versions, access tiers, changing features.
Oh, yeah. That ecosystem complexity can definitely be a barrier. It makes it harder for users to just figure out the best way to get access to and use capabilities like gems.
So, specific to intent challenges aside,
Yeah.
there's still that broader skepticism we started with. Dan Olesky's point about the uncertain ROI for LLMs in general,
Mhm.
that probably applies even more strongly to potentially more complex, maybe more costly agent implementations.
Absolutely. Is the value proposition strong enough yet to move most companies beyond just experimenting? That's a big question.
So, given this whole mix, advancing tech, real limitations, big market questions, what do the experts really emphasize as crucial? For organizations trying to adopt and actually succeed with AI agents, that IBM source kept hitting two themes hard.
Yes, very consistently across all the expert perspectives in that source, two words kept coming up: governance and strategy. They see these as non-negotiable foundations.
Okay, let's drill down on governance first. Why is that so critical, specifically for agents that might take actions on their own?
Well, as Gadjar points out, when you start integrating agents deeper into your operations, you absolutely need robust governance. You need ways to monitor their performance, ensure there's clear accountability if something goes wrong.
And Ashuri gives that stark example.
Right, the risk illustration. Imagine an agent set up to manage internal documents. It connects to a sensitive database, and maybe due to an error or misinterpretation, it accidentally deletes critical records.
That's the nightmare scenario for any IT department or business leader.
Absolutely terrifying. So Gadjar really emphasizes the need for rigorous testing. Using sandbox environments first, trying agents out before they ever touch live systems.
Make sense?
You need mechanisms for rollback. How do you undo what the agent did if it screws up? And you need comprehensive audit logs. You need to be able to track every single action the agent takes.
Especially in regulated industries like finance or insurance you mentioned.
Exactly, where errors can have massive financial or legal consequences. Governance isn't just a checkbox for compliance. It's fundamental safety, reliability, and building trust when you start delegating tasks to AI.
Okay, governance is critical for safety and control. What about strategy? Why is that so vital beyond just having the latest tech toy?
Danilevsky argues really strongly against what she sees as a FOMO-driven AI boom. Companies adopting AI just because they're afraid of missing out without a clear purpose. Strategy is about making sure that adopting AI agents is actually tied to real, demonstrable business needs and measurable economic value. It's about countering that hammer in search of a nail problem.
So don't just deploy an agent because you can. Deploy it because it genuinely solves a business problem or creates tangible value.
Exactly. The strategy needs to focus on how these agents deliver long-term benefits. Is it efficiency gains, better decision-making, unlocking completely new capabilities?
And it might involve integrating them carefully into existing processes, maybe letting them learn over time, as Gadjar suggested.
Right, integrating them into the ecosystem for continuous learning and improvement.
And this point seems really interesting, especially for businesses. Hay and Ashuri both mentioned a critical strategic step, getting your own house in order first, becoming agent-ready by organizing your private proprietary data.
This is absolutely foundational. Think about it. The real power, the real differentiation for a company using AI agents often comes from the agent's ability to leverage the company's own unique internal data.
Customer histories, internal research, operational data, all those documents.
Exactly. An agent that can effectively research and analyze that specific data can provide insights and automate tasks in a way that a generic agent, only trained on public web data, simply cannot. It's the key to competitive advantage with AI.
And bringing it back to GEMS and Google Workspace.
Yeah.
For organizations using that suite, becoming agent-ready means making sure their internal docs, their sheets, other data within that Google ecosystem. It needs to be organized, accessible, maybe structured in a way that Gemini and GEMS can reliably interact with it, perhaps using Google Cloud integrations.
Precisely. If your valuable proprietary data is locked away in silos, totally unorganized, or not formatted in a way the AI can access and understand, well, even the smartest agent won't be able to use it effectively.
So organizing and structuring that internal knowledge base is a huge strategic prerequisite. It's necessary to unlock the full potential and really scale the impact of tools like GEMS for specific business differentiation.
Ashori basically calls this the ticket for enterprises, the way to move from just playing around with generative AI to actually maximizing its ROI by leveraging their unique data and workflows.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Finally, let's touch on the human element. We hear a lot about AI agents replacing jobs, but the consensus from these experts seems different.
Yeah, the strong vision coming through from the IBM experts consistently is one of agents augmenting human workers, not replacing them wholesale.
Augmenting how?
Ashori talks about empowering employees, letting them decide how to best use agents to assist them, rather than having it dictated from the top down.
So the agent handles the tedious stuff, the routine time-consuming tasks,
Right.
freeing up the human for the more complex work, the creative thinking, the strategic planning, the things that really require human judgment and expertise.
That's the ideal scenario, what Danilevsky calls the human-in-the-loop, or HITL vision. The AI assists, it surfaces information, maybe drafts initial content, automates simple steps.
But the human stays in control, makes the final decisions, especially for complex or high-stakes tasks.
Exactly. Gadjar agrees, seeing agents reshaping work by automating those low-value activities. But she stresses, again, the need for intentional implementation strategies, with governance focused on fairness, transparency, accountability, to make sure this augmentation is actually beneficial and ethical.
And Hay had that important warning note too, didn't he, if you don't implement it carefully.
Yeah, the risk is that humans could end up just augmenting the AI, spending their time cleaning up its mistakes or doing the hard parts the AI can't handle, instead of the AI truly freeing them up for more interesting, higher-value work.
Which just brings us right back around to why strategy and governance aren't optional extras. They're fundamental to making this work well.
They're the pillars for successful, human-centric agent adoption. The goal has to be genuinely empowering people, not just creating more work or introducing new risks because of poorly implemented automation.
Wow, okay. This has been a really comprehensive deep dive. We've really unpacked the world of AI agents, looking closely at Google's approach with Gemini GEMS. We've navigated that distinction between the theoretical true agent and the current reality of sophisticated LLMs using tools.
Highlighting that skepticism around just relabeling orchestration.
Exactly. We explored the practical recipe for building a custom AI like a gem, focusing on defining that brain with detailed instructions, maybe using roads.
Incorporating knowledge files, with that big asterisk around the reliability of external document training for GEMS specifically.
Right. And enabling specific capabilities or tools.
Then we saw them in action. Across those two key domains, leveraging that deep integration within Google Workspace for practical business productivity in Gmail, Docs, maybe Sheets or Maps.
And then the totally different world of creative and persona-driven uses unlocked by really detailed instruction crafting, from Anthony Bourdain reviewers to, well, psychic mediums.
A wide spectrum for sure.
And we wrapped up looking at the future, acknowledging Gemini's ongoing improvements in areas like multimodality and reasoning.
But also hitting those critical challenges. Consistency, that external data training issue for GEMS, the broader market question of ROI.
And most importantly, emphasizing that non-negotiable need for robust governance, for safety, accountability, auditability, and a clear strategic vision tied to real business value.
Including that crucial step of organizing your own proprietary data, becoming agent-ready to truly differentiate how you use these tools.
The vision that really emerges, particularly from those IDM experts, it's one of AI agents augmenting humans, freeing up potential, but only if done thoughtfully with strong governance and strategy.
Yeah, it's clear we're still in the early innings of truly autonomous agents, But tools like Gemini Gems, they are providing powerful, customizable AI experiences right now. And they especially benefit from being deeply embedded in ecosystems people already use heavily, like Google Workspace.
Which brings us perfectly to our final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. As these personalized AI assistants, especially the ones woven seamlessly into the platforms you use every single day for work, for creativity, like Google Workspace, as they get smarter, more capable of taking action for you, how do you see yourself balancing things? How do you balance the undeniable convenience, the efficiency of their tailored help, with the need to maintain your own critical judgment, your own oversight, your control over the outcomes?
That's the core tension, isn't it?
Is that promise of hyper-personalized AI worth the potential downsides, over-reliance, maybe unforeseen errors? And what kind of governance or even just personal strategies might you need to put in place to make sure these incredibly powerful tools genuinely augment your capabilities rather than accidentally diminishing your own essential role in the process? Something to think about.